Welcome everyone, this is Missy again. Welcome to my blog, Random I Am. Today I'm going to talk about a trip I took to Scotland. I was invited to Blair Castle with a group of my reenacting friends, two swordsmen, a tea historian, a very well-educated young lady, and myself. We were there for the 300th anniversary of the Jacobite rebellion of 1715. We were to be in residence at Blair Castle and do living history demonstrations and talk throughout the day for a week. What a wonderful experience that was. So when we got to the castle, we were met by the archivist, and she said, "Well, what do you have and what do you need?" And, well, the gentleman could not bring anything with him, so she produced swords from the Culloden battlefield, a couple of dirks, and a brace of Murdochs from the Culloden battlefield. These were all on loan to us while we were at the castle. For myself, all I brought with me was a drop spindle for spinning some wool if they had any. I could not bring any overseas with me, so that it was important that they gave me something to do. Well, the lady said, "Not a problem. You can spin?" And I said, "I can." And she said, "Well, we have a wheel." And so she had David, the handyman, bring from the attic a spinning wheel and a bunch of other pieces of equipment. Some quite didn't go along. There was a loom spindle for an industrial loom. There was a couple hand cards for processing wool. There was a distaff, and there was some linen, and this decrepit spinning wheel. And I was told they have no provenance on the spinning wheel. It was in the attic. They don't know where it came from. It's always been there. Do what you can with it, not to worry. And so I looked at the spinning wheel, and the first thing I did was see if the wheel went around, make sure it was true, and all the parts seemed to be there. All right. So what I needed to do next was set up the distaff with the flax that they had brought me. And this is a process where you tie the flax, which looks like a long ponytail of a girl's hair. You tie the end of it and you wrap it around the stick, and the stick is called a distaff. And then you can spin it. Well, usually you would spin it on a spinning wheel, but you can also spin it on a drop spindle, and that's the tool that I had brought with me. So I spun, oh my goodness, quite a bit of linen. That's what flax is linen when it's spun. I spun quite a bit of it on my drop spindle. Then I had my friends who were with me assist me, and we took the drop spindle and held on to one end of the spun string, walked it all the way to the other end of the ballroom in the castle, and then another person held that point, and we walked the drop spindle all the way back, and then let it twist together naturally, so I had 2-ply linen string. All right, with that, I tied the string onto the spinning wheel, and I began to see if I could make it work. Well, I got the spinning wheel to work, and I got it to spin. Now, this spinning wheel was different than many others that I have seen. Let me go back a little bit. I received my textile degree, in 1978. And I did my big project at Slater Mill Historic Site in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And that is where I rebuilt looms and spinning wheels, all sorts of spinning wheels. And I really got a lot of my skills at that location. So when they brought me this spinning wheel, I was able to analyze its problems and really take a good look at it. And I got it working. But one of the interesting things about this spinning wheel is that on the table of the spinning wheel was a little box cut out. It was carved out much the way you do a pumpkin at Halloween. You know, you carve down and around, and then you lift the lid out. Well, this was done on the table of the spinning wheel. And the lid was lifted out, then the box was squared up inside, and then they reformed the lid a little bit and put wire hinges on it. And so it was a wee little empty box about that big on the table of the spinning wheel. I had never seen that before. And it had a lovely little handle on it, but it was remarkable to me. And so I kept that in my mind. Well, as I was working with the spinning wheel, and I did get it to spin, and under protest, it screamed and it squealed, so much so that the archivist got a hold of David the handyman and sent him to me with an armload of fix-its. He brought, well, in Scotland it's not called WD-40, it's hydro some other numbers. He brought a can of that, a bar of soap, and a candle. All of these things can stop a squeak at some point. And it was the bar of soap that I really needed. So we got the spinning wheel quieted down, and I spun on that spinning wheel the whole week long. Oh my goodness, it was fun, and telling stories about how comforting spinning is. And while the gentlemen were doing their demonstrations with the swords, and my other friend was demonstrating the different ways that teas are prepared, and there I was spinning. And then I had a group of young people come that were interested in music, and I talked to them about walking songs, which walking songs is it's a tool, it's a work song that was done by women after they finished weaving a big piece of woolen fabric. They would walk it, which means they would full it, that's F-U-L-L, full it. And basically that's just beating on it and smashing it around with water and soap until it becomes thicker and almost waterproof. This has been done with woolen fabric forever, and especially the Highlands, where they wore almost exclusively woolen on the outside, and they kept them warm and dry. And so the walking process is very important. And women had taken great pride in their walking songs that would keep the rhythm so that when they did all this pounding, it would be effective. Well, these young people had learned a couple modern walking songs from a local musician, and they weren't sure what walking was. And so I sat them down on the floor, and we took a piece of tartan, and I showed them how this was done and how the song, the rhythm of the song, would help to guide them as they pounded, beat, and moved this piece of fabric around, fulling it and making it thicker. Oh, what a treat that was. Well, at the end of the week of spinning and swordplay, the archivist came to me and said, well, since you did such a good job repairing that spinning wheel, we'd like to incorporate that into our display. Oh my goodness, as a living historian, nothing means more than your hands to history. My hands touched that, and now it's going to be a part of history forever. And I was thrilled about that. And she said then, and you get to choose which location you'd like the spinning wheel. Now, there was a nursery upstairs, and then there was a bedroom, and I could choose between the two of them. Well, a nursery is always a good place for a spinning wheel. The rhythmic sound of the wheel is comforting to children. A baby on your lap while you're spinning is comforting to children and to the spinner. So I said, all right, this is really exciting. So my whole group went with me, and we climbed the stairs to the third floor. David, the handyman, carried the spinning wheel. And when we got up, I looked at the nursery. Yes, that was nice. And then I looked at the guest room, where it was the other option for the spinning wheel. And I said, oh, look, there's a sculpture of a woman spinning on a spinning wheel. Why don't we put this real spinning wheel in front of the sculpture so that people can look and compare the artistic render to the real thing? And everybody thought that was a good idea. So David turned off the security and walked in and placed the spinning wheel in front of the sculpture. And then he stepped back out. And I said, excuse me, if we're going to draw comparisons, we should probably have both spinning wheels going in the same direction. That's backwards to the sculpture. Oh, well, why don't you step in and fix it? And so I did. Well, I looked at the sculpture and I looked at the spinning wheel. The spinning wheel that I had just repaired was the exact same spinning wheel as in the sculpture. Now people say, oh, come on, that can't possibly be. Well, you have to understand, the spinning wheel is very, very old. And it was handmade, and the turnings, all the spindles of the spinning wheel are all done by hand by one artist, and he made them all the same. Now, no two artists do exactly the same thing the same way every time. So when I looked at the spinning wheel, all the turnings on the spindles were the same as the turnings in the sculpture. The artist who did the sculpture reproduced the spinning wheel. Also, in the artist's interpretation was the little box that was carved into the table of the spinning wheel. Now you can say, well, that was something that was done. I had never seen that. So it was special in my book. And that the turnings were all the same. And then the caption on the bottom of the spinning wheel, on the bottom of the sculpture, it said, Queen Victoria spinning on her spinning wheel, 1856. Says I. I said, that is the same spinning wheel. And my friends, who are also quite knowledgeable about historical things, said, that really is the same spinning wheel. And the archivist said, no, that couldn't possibly be Queen Victoria's spinning wheel. And, well, I understand. Whether she used it or not, the spinning wheel that I repaired was the same spinning wheel as it was used in the sculpture. And that, whether it was or not, does not matter. Well, years went by, and one of our friends went back to Blair Castle. And in the foyer, they had put the spinning wheel that I repaired with the advertisement for the series Victoria that was going to be filmed, by the way, at Blair Castle. So my hands to history in their littlest bit, it meant the world to me. And it doesn't mean anything to anyone else, but my goodness. So after the trip to Blair Castle, we went to the Northern Hebrides, and I was able to conduct the autumnal equinox celebration at one of the largest standing stones at 13 feet I had ever seen, and it was on the Isle of Harris. What an experience that was for me. I am so fortunate to have been able to share these things with you, and I hope you enjoy my stories. Thank you so much, and I have pictures for you, and I'd like to dedicate this episode to my friends, the Coopers. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have any ideas of things that you'd like me to talk about, well, just let me know. Thank you so much.
Things passed on.